thank you, Dr. Mulligan, and we'll begin the questioning round, and I will recognize myself for 5 minutes for questions. So, Dr. Mulligan, the cost of living and affordability for Americans, including our small businesses, has been top of mind for President Trump in the first year of his second term. Overregulation makes it difficult for small firms to stay in business, and it also hurts every American family struggling with the costs of childcare, home heating, and electricity, and housing affordability. With the holidays around the corner, how has the deregulation made everyday items more affordable for our American families?
Thank you for your question. And the answer is much anticipated in the Regulatory Flexibility Act. It points to two issues with regulatory overreach. One is by discouraging the smaller companies from entering the market, there's less competition, and those bigger companies who are still there are free to charge quite a bit. Mm-hmm. The other channel is productivity. We ended up using more resources to do the same amount because of the extra paperwork and extra compliance. So electricity, for example, we need more resources to make the same electricity, which means higher electricity prices for people. We've seen that throughout the energy area in the last 4 years. Delivering energy to our consumers has been quite difficult.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, good. And I appreciate that and the fact that we are trying to drive those costs down, and it's just common sense measures that this administration is taking. So, Dr. Mulligan, as your testimony had pointed out, small businesses across Iowa and America are hurting due to the compliance costs that Washington bureaucrats don't even think twice about. For our small business owners, extra paperwork means less time actually working to grow their businesses. And as you know, as I discussed earlier, I've introduced the Prove It Act to make bureaucrats prove that those proposed rules do not harm small businesses. And it gives advocacy further tools to enforce their mission and to ensure small businesses are considered in the rulemaking process. How would the tools given to your office in the Prove It Act allow you to better interact with your federal partners, and what legislative authority would you still need?
Thank you for your question. My experience so far in the Trump administration, which has just been a few months, they are extremely supportive of advocacy and the small businesses. They are coming to me quite often asking, what can we do to make the rules better for small businesses? But President Trump won't always be our president. And then what happens after that? And I think legislation would be quite helpful to stop the practice that we saw so much in the last 4 years of saying that a regulation is not meaningful for the small businesses, when in fact it's quite meaningful and can sometimes put them out of business.
Yes, we've seen that a lot through the years, and hopefully we'll be able to get the Prove It Act across the finish line. That is definitely a goal of mine. Recently, the CFPB released a proposed rule regarding small business lending, and just this week, the EPA released a new proposed WOTUS rule. How do these new rules compare to their predecessors in terms of their impact on small businesses?
Both of those rules, when they came out before this administration, they were adding costs, as we heard in my office about those costs. And the new rules they're in the proposed stage. They're largely set to reverse what was done. And during the process, I've seen, even in preparing the proposed rules, there was a lot of listening to small businesses, and those agencies told us, wow, we were glad to hear from them because we were able to make a better proposed rule based on the wisdom that they heard from outside the Beltway.
Mm-hmm. That is good. And I'll just share a very abbreviated story, but also when it came to farmers under the Biden WOTUS rule, if a farmer who had not tilled his field for a while, if he decided to farm that land again, There was additional cost because that farmer was fined hundreds of thousands of dollars for disturbing the land that he owned and intended to farm. So not only is there a cost of regulation and adhering to that regulation, but then there's the government overreach where you can also be fined for simply doing your normal day-to-day activities as a small business owner, which our farmers are small business owners. So my time has expired. We'll come back for additional questions, but at this point I will recognize the Senator